My connection to Mike began when we moved to the Bridal Mile district, where I started the 5th grade. I met Gary Howling there, and he was good friends with Mike, who was a year younger than us. I also got to be friends with Duncan Metcalf, and he and Mike were also tight. But it wasn't until I was going to Wilson High School that Mike and I got to be friends. And it mostly grew out of the fact that Gary and his brother Mark, who we all called Reese, lived in an apartment near the school at Vermont Street and Bertha Boulevard. They lived with their mom, who worked all day at a bank. The result was that we all had a place to relax, goof off, and have fun after school without any parental supervision. This is Reese and Gary in 1969 in the apartment. I recall that the dog was named Dogger, much in the way Mike was always referred to by Reese as Bloomer. And I remember that the apartment had a copy of this painting in it, which I really loved, and I spent a lot of time looking at it. When I visited South Africa in 2015, I managed to see this original of the painting. I shot these during the summer of 1969. Don Crouch, Duncan, and Chad Vanison are seen here paying a visit to the apartment hangout. My most memorable year of college was the 6 months that I lived with Mike on 17th Avenue in Eugene. As I recall, Mike's sister Linda had moved out, and Mike asked me aboard. Since I was living in the living room of an apartment with Duncan and Jeff Simon at the time, I said yes immediately. My move coincided with the arrival of my new camera from Hong Kong, so I took lots of shots, and Mike was kind enough to put up with my hobby. Linda stopped by a few times to visit us after I moved in. Here's Mike in our living room. Our dining table was the focus of the room in many ways. Mike was always a passionate eater. Present in the photo was a bottle of Bernstein's salad dressing, which he considered the only possible dressing to use. This is an accurate capture of our relative neatness and cleanliness, too. Mike was fun to grocery shop with. He could eat an entire rhubarb bunch as he wandered around the store. Here's Mike's shot of me. Note the use at all times of paper plates to cut down on dishwashing. Here's my 1964 Chevy Impala with its original bike rack in front of the house, which I believe now has been scraped and replaced by an apartment complex. Here's my upstairs room, complete with second floor waterbed. For parties, we ran a wire off my stereo and hooked it up to speakers in the living room. We were sort of an odd couple, and I think you can guess which of us was the obnoxious neatness freak. Here's Mike in his room. Virtually all of his clothes remained strewn around the room so that he could always locate them easily. Here's the student at work. Note the use of leftover kegger cups for beverages rather than using actual glasses. That January, Duncan and Jeff stopped by for some drinks and laughs. I wish I had the tape of whatever we put together that night. Then it was on to the snowball fight. This remains one of my favorite photos of Mike that I ever took. another get-together in April of 1973. Someone had driven some Coors up for us, which was a big event then, as it wasn't available in Oregon. There was some drinking and some pipe smoking. This is another one of my favorite shots of Mike. He really cleaned up pretty good in those days. Here we are that May. The grass is growing high and we absolutely refused to mow it. In fact, we encouraged it to grow as high as possible. This is another one of my self-timer shots. Mike had to race into his room, and he just barely made it. Here's Mike on his motorcycle going cross-country to give me the perfect shot. This one's my idea to show all of our big possessions. It shows our cars, bikes, and most importantly, our tennis rackets. Mike's shown here watering the weeds near his junker Volkswagen Bug. Mike always specialized in cheap rides that overall ran great for him. Not all of the doors worked, however. After repeated calls demanding that we mow the yard, the house owner, Mr. Rezvani, finally threw in the towel and came and did it himself. There were a lot of metal bits that we had strewn into the yard, like a hammerhead. That would have been a bear to hit when he did the job. Occasionally, Mike's rides would break down. His bike needed to be rescued from the highway heading towards Bend, as I recall. He rented a U-Haul, hooked it up to my car, and then he led me to where he had hidden his bike off the road. I picked up tennis as a sport during a college PE class that I had that year I lived with Mike. So he and I would often drop our studies and head over to the school's lighted courts for an hour of practice, and then we'd return refreshed and ready to hit the books again. Here Mike is practicing his techniques off of the side of the house. He always had great technique. Here's Mike with his then girlfriend Molly. I think it must have been Valentine's Day, because that wasn't Mike's usual outfit. We threw a big kegger that spring as school neared its end. Lots of our old Wilson High School friends showed up for it. The first and only Stupor Bowl in January 1975 at my house on Hilliard Street in Eugene. It was 6-man teams, and the first team to finish a pony keg was the winner. Now a pony keg is almost 8 gallons, so that means there's 82 12-ounce glasses of beer for each 6-man team to finish. There was a sheet posted on the wall to mark every beer that you drank. They got pretty messy after a while. I don't remember which team ended up winning, just that all 3 teams finished within about 10 minutes of each other. 1975, Mike's mom had rented a condo at Lake Tahoe, so Bo Zancanella, Mike, and I drove down there all night. To save money, we just stopped at a beach in the middle of the night and slept there. And this was the Polaroid I took when we woke up. Mike showed up at Lewis and Clark to see me graduate in June 1979, and I shot this picture with Mike, my friend Andrea, Don, and his girlfriend Donna. After I took the bar exam in 1979, Mike joined me and a classmate of mine for a 4 or 5 night backpacking journey in Mount Lassen National Park. I love Mike's poncho and tennis shoes for his hiking gear. When I looked closely at Mike's pack in this photo, I saw that he had a short case of beer strapped to the outside of it. Neither Mike or I ever caught a single fish there. My brother Jerry flew to Reno after we were done with our hike, and we stayed up all night, gambled and drank, and then everyone fit into my Volkswagen for the long drive home. As soon as Mike passed the bar exam, he worked for a year or so in Washington, D.C., and I had to go pay him a visit. I think I was there for about a week, and we just had an awesome time. Shown here at the Aeronautics Museum with the Spirit of St. Louis, and another shot showing one of Mike's great cars. This one was one of my favorites, the rusty lime green Carmen Ghia. The chicks thought we were really pretty special when we drove around in it. I bought a house in Alameda in 1982, and Mike would stop by and play some ping pong with us in the basement. The best trip I ever took with Mike was the one to Mexico in 1983. We spent our first week in Puerto Vallarta, followed by a week at a Club Med that was about an hour south of there. We had just our first night's reservation in Puerto Vallarta. The next morning, Mike took off from the resort and returned shortly afterwards to tell me he had arranged everything, and so we taxied into the town. Mike had found a penthouse atop about an 8-story apartment building, complete with its own rooftop pool, all for less than what we had been spending at the resort. We had a great time, at least until the disco opened up every night at midnight right next door. Club Med was really fun as well. We both perfected our tans, although I could never quite compete with Mike in that department. Some dental work done and took codeine for the pain. I learned that it doesn't mix very well with beers, although I was pretty happy overall. Mike and the others ended up putting me to bed, and they continued on with the party at my house without me. This is at a New Year's party that Don Crouch threw downtown at a hotel. Don left for Dallas in 1990, we threw a goodbye party. The belly dancer left this draped over the man of honor. Mike, I've loved every minute of our times together. You've always been a terrific friend and a guy that everyone enjoyed spending time with. Hope you enjoyed this.